Chris Martin here for Creative Cow, and welcome to another exciting tutorial. Today we are going to track some footage in Synthesize and come up with this kind of cool effect. So we've got our footage of my desk actually, and we've tracked that in Synthesize, and then we've taken that into Cinema 4D and we've applied some effectors to it, and then we have taken that and pulled it into After Effects and did a little post effect work in there. So it's kind of a cool effect. Just let you see this in slow motion. You can actually see the reflection of the Cal logo in the desk along with the shadows. So it's pretty cool. Let me just show you kind of what this is how we're gonna lay this out. The first part is going to be in Synthesize. We're going to track the footage. We're going to export a light wave scene. We'll import that into Cinema 4D. Then we're going to create the desk geometry that's going to actually receive the shadows and the reflections here. We're going to apply some lights and materials to the scene, and then we're going to use MoGraph to animate the Cal logo. We'll apply some compositing tags and export those using multi-pass rendering out of Cinema 4D. And then we'll pull that all into After Effects and apply the post effects. So we got a lot to do, so let's get started. So let's get in here into Synthesize, and we need to add our shot first. So I'm going to go to Shot, Add Shot, and navigate to wherever you have your image sequence, which will include that with this tutorial. Open that. We're going to choose the NTSC preset and square pixel. And we'll click OK. And then this is going to load that image sequence into cache here. You can see it kind of working slowly. Alright, we're loaded up. Now the way we're going to track this, we're just going to use the auto tracker on this. We have a lot of points and everything in here that the auto tracker will attach to pretty well. In some other tutorials that we do later on, we'll probably do some manual tracking and show you guys how to do all that, but for this tutorial the auto tracker is going to work fine. So I'm just going to go up here, click the big green auto button, and it's going to start doing its thing. A lot of math going on here. Alright. Okay, now we've got an error code of 1.0, which is not that great. So what we're going to want to do, and the interesting thing is if you track this thing 3 different times, you may get 3 different results on the H-pix, the horizontal pixels here. So let's go in here and take a look at some of these tracks and see what maybe we don't need. These on the floor here, I think we can get rid of those. And I think there may be a couple trackers. Let me open up the camera view here and just run through this. See this one right here, I don't think that it seems to be tracking that well. If we go into here, and this is our tracker panel, we select that, then we can see up here from just before frame 60 all the way to a little after 340, that's where it's actually tracking that particular point. So let me run through there, and you can see here if it's staying on track in this little window here. I'm going to delete that point, and I'm going to run through here and let me take a look at a couple more of these. I'm going to go ahead and refine this. So we go over here to the calculator, the solver panel, and I'm going to click on Refine. I'm going to click on Slow but Sure and click on Go. And it's going to recalculate this and our error pixels, our horizontal pixels, are still over 1. We want to get this at 0.7 or below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and continue going in here and evaluating some of these tracks and see if we can't get this number down a little further. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and I've got the horizontal pixels error down to 0.7, which is going to be adequate for this this tutorial. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and create a coordinate system. So I'm going to click on the coordinate system tab here. I'm going to click on this little 3-point button, and the first thing it wants me to do is select an origin point. So setting up a coordinate system, you can use any 3 points that you want to set up your coordinate system. It doesn't matter, but you want to try and pick a coordinate system that makes sense. We know that we're going to take and we're going to put this cow logo right here, so I'm going to set up my origin point right here, and I'm going to set up this point here to represent the XY plane here, and then I'm going to select another point, we'll say here, there we go, and that's going to be the Z axis. So we'll click yes to apply the coordinate system, click OK, and looks like we're set up pretty well. Let's go take a look at this in the camera view. We'll just run through here, and it looks like our trackers are pretty well set. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and export this scene. So I'm going to go File, Export, and I'm going to choose Light Wave Scene. Go ahead and use the defaults here. Click OK. So we're pretty much done with Synthize for now. So now we're going to go ahead and get into Cinema 4D. So here we are in Cinema. Now the first thing we want to do is open our light wave scene that we exported out of Synthize. So we'll do File, Open, Desk Cow, and you'll see that it opens it up, and we've got all these little tracker points in here. Now the first thing we want to do is select the first tracker and the last tracker, and Alt-G to put them into a null. We'll call them trackers. We can go ahead and delete this environment. We're going to create a new material, turn off the specular, go to color, and we're going to search for our TIFF sequence, which is right here, and we'll load that up. Click No. We'll click on this little box to go into it. We'll go to the Animation tab, and we'll click Calculate, and it calculates all the frames there for us. Now we want to drop a background in here, and we want to put this on the background. Then we'll come over here to the trackers, we'll right click, select children, so it's basically selecting everything underneath this null. We'll go to the object, we'll turn that into circles. This is just so that we can see a little better. And we will turn on always automatic and make it a different color, and maybe make the radius a little smaller on these. So now we've got our sequence in here and our tracker points, and you can see that they're lining up and they're stuck to the desk. Now let's go ahead and import our cow logo. So we'll go File, Merge, and we will select the cow logo file that you'll have, and that drops that in here. And let's go into a quad view here, F5 on the keyboard, so we can kind of see what we've got going on, and kind of pull that down. Now what I want to do now is I want to put some geometry on this desk basically a plane that's going to allow us to get some shadows and reflections off of the cow here. So let's go ahead and drop a plane in here. And we will make it 1 by 1. And let's go ahead and just, that's fine. We want to get it so that it fits on the edge of the desk there. Maybe rotate it around a little bit so that it kind of lines up with it. That looks about right. Get on a quad view so we can see what we've got. Okay. And that's sort of sticking to the desk now. Obviously, if we do a quick render here, that doesn't look very good at all. So what we need to do now is create a null object. We'll call it rebuilt desk. And I want to take this material, the material for the background, I'm going to duplicate it, just control drag it, and we'll call it desk. And I'm going to put that on the rebuilt desk, null. And I'm also going to double click it, and I'm going to give it some reflection, and we'll say maybe 8. Now I'm going to take, the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that when we click on the button here that we change the projection method to frontal. And then I'm going to drag the plane underneath that. So now if you render, it sort of starts to blend into the desk here, and we're getting our reflection. But it doesn't look completely right. It's you can see the edges, and it's kind of ugly right now. So the other thing that we need to do is right click on the rebuilt desk, go to Cinema 4D tags and choose compositing, and click on the compositing background tag. Now when we come over here and render again, it's gone, but you can still see the reflection here. Pretty cool, huh? Next we want to throw a couple lights in here. We'll call this one front, and we will duplicate that. We'll call this one back. Go into a quad view. For the back one, we're going to drag it back here, and we'll pull it up, and we will turn shadows on for it. And for the front one, keep it up here in front, and we will drag that one up as well. So back into single view here. Now you can see we have our logo being lit from the front, and we've also got the back casting some shadows, the light from the back here. Okay, so things are kind of coming together. We can see if we drag back here, everything seems to be sticking, and we're getting good reflections and shadows. So now we want to actually do something with our logo here. And actually, I'm going to take this and make it a little bit smaller to start out with. That looks fine. So I want to apply some MoGraph effectors to this logo, the cow logo here. And the way we do that is to apply a fracture object to the cow null, which is going to affect all of the assets below the null. So I'm going to select the cow null, I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and I am going to find the fracture object. Now it's not going to look like it's done anything, but it has. And you want to make sure that on the fracture object that you have the mode in straight, which is the default. So now with this fracture object on here, we can go ahead and we can freely apply any of the MoGraph effectors, and it will affect this logo. So I don't want this logo to be here when we actually first start over here at frame 0. So with the fracture object selected, I'm going to come over here to MoGraph, and I'm going to find the plane effector. Now by default, the plane effector is set for position. So it's basically taken the position and it's moved it up in Y 100. We don't want that. We want to turn on the scale, turn on uniform scale, and type in -1. And it's gone. So let me just get into the quad view here so we can see what's going on. I'm going to come over here to the fall off of the plane effector. I'm going to choose linear. And you can see the plane effector right here. I am going to turn that 90 degrees in the heading. And then if we move the plane effector through the scene, you can see that it's affecting the logo now. I want to change that to 180. So now if we run through it, it sort of flips up as we run through it. Another thing I want to change here on the plane effector is the fall off. Make the fall off a little more. Just personal preference. So now all we have to do is we just need to animate the position of this plane effector. So at frame 30, I want to select the plane effector, go to the coordinates tab, select the position, keyframes, and control click it. Let's do that again. So we want to get it in a position where the logo is not visible. And then we'll move to frame 50. And we'll just move it through so that the logo is revealed, and then we'll control click again. So now we've got our logo animating on between 30 and 50. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, so now I want to animate this spinning a little bit, and so to do that I'm going to select the fracture object, and I'm going to come up to MoGraph, and I'm going to choose the random effector. You could use several different effectors for this, but I'm just going to use the random effector for this effect. So we'll go to the parameters, and we're going to turn off the position. We're going to want the rotation, and it's going to be the heading. And I'm going to select, let's see, what does -30 look like? So at 150, I'm going to put a keyframe at -30 for the heading, and go to 200. And take this back to 0, keyframe that, and back up to 250, and we'll just animate it a little more and keyframe that. You can do whatever you want here. This is just, you know, random numbers I'm putting in here. Okay, so next what I want to do is I want this logo to get bigger as we get up to it. So I would say at about 400. You know what, it's actually a little big right now, so let's adjust the scale of it of the cow. I'm just going to move it down. Let's see how that's affected everything else though. Okay, so we come in, got a little spin. Okay, that works. And then we'll go to 400. We'll go to the random effector and we'll take a look at the scale. Click on uniform scale, and I'm going to put a keyframe for scale at 0. Then at 450, I'm going to take this up to, let's say, 1.5. So it kind of gets bigger, and we'll put a keyframe there. Control click, and then we'll take it to 500. We'll take this number back down to 0, and we'll keyframe that. So at 400, it sort of gets a little bit bigger, and between 450 and 500, it scales back down to normal size. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now let's go ahead and get this thing ready to render out. I'm going to take the text and I'm going to right click Cinema 4D tags and put a compositing tag on there, and then I want to go to the object buffer and enable object buffer 1, and I also want to do the same thing for the actual the cow face here, which is the cow cover. Click that on and off, you can see there. So I'm going to control drag this compositing tag onto the cow cover, which is the face, and change its object buffer to 2. So now what this is going to do when we render this out is it's going to make a separate pass for the text, the creative cow text, and it's going to make a separate pass for the cow face. So then we can go and we can isolate those two elements and we can apply effects to those that won't affect anything else. The other thing that we need to make sure that we do in the render settings, under multipass, check that, and we need to put in 2 object buffers, 1 and 2. This one is set to 1, and this one we need to set to 2. We also need to give it an output, all frames, save. We need to give it a multipass path as well. Our compositing AEC file, go ahead and save that. And the other thing that I did in my original file is I turned on ambient occlusion, and that just makes the shadows a little more realistic. It calculates the shadows and everything. It looks a little better. It takes quite a bit longer, but if you've got the time, I would go ahead and turn that on. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything. So at this point, it would be render time. So I'm going to go ahead and let it render, and I'll see you back in After Effects. Okay, so we're back. We're in After Effects, and we're going to load in our AEC file that was exported out of Cinema 4D. So I'm going to double click here and go to the folder where your AEC file is located. Select that, click Open, and it's going to basically bring in everything we need to set this scene up. So the first thing I'm going to do is double click on the Cinema 4D comp, and you can see it brings in our camera, our lights, and we've got everything in here just like we exported it out. It also brings in these 2 special passes. The first one, these object buffers, double click this, run through the timeline here. You can see that is the text that has been separated out. And we can double click on the second one, and that is the cow face. So what I want to do is come over here, click on this TIFF sequence. I'm going to drag it into the new comp, and I'm going to take the object buffer 1 and put it on top, and then I'm going to use the Luma mat, track mat. So now when we pull it through here, our creative cow text has been separated out. We'll close that, Control D to duplicate it, and let's call this one, call the first one text, and on this one we'll double click it to open it up. We'll select the top object buffer 1 and we're going to replace it with object buffer 2. So we'll alt drag on top of this one, and it basically puts the cow face object buffer in there. So now we have that one separated out. And let's go ahead and rename that to face. So now what we can do is take the face and the text comps and we can pull them into our main comp here. And we can apply effects to these independently of everything else in the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a glow. I'm going to put that on the face. You can see it's just applying to this area here. And I'm going to change this to 60, 10, and we'll change this to 0.6. Now I am going to do the same thing for the text, except I'm going to change this to 61 and 0.4. Now the last thing I did was to go ahead and put this entire comp and pre-comp it, and I went ahead and used a real smart motion blur so that when it spins around we get a little motion blur going on here. And the other thing is I used Magic Bullet looks on this, and this is a great plug-in from Red Giant you might want to take a look at, especially if you're doing anything with videotape. This makes your video look so much better than just what comes out of the camera, so really you ought to take a look at this if you're doing a lot of video. And the other is the Real Smart Motion Blur from Revision Effects. This is a fantastic plugin as well. So I pre-comped this, used the Real Smart Motion Blur on here, and then we went to Magic Bullet Looks, click on the Edit tab, and I think for the looks I went down here and used it was a stock emulation number 85, and for the tools I put in the lens vignette, drag that on here and just kind of pull it in. Click OK. Kind of darkens the scene up, and we've got our animation. This is probably a little too dark, but you guys get the idea. So anyway, that is the tutorial for today. Let me just take my original file and play that again. So it's a pretty in-depth tutorial, but we got a pretty good result here. So anyway, my name is Chris Martin for Creative Cow. Thanks for watching.